My friends, there's a storm raging in the hearts of so many people today. Worry has become the silent killer of joy. Anxiety is the midnight visitor that robs us of rest. We sit up at night replaying what went wrong, wondering if tomorrow will bring relief, and yet, deep down, we forget one simple truth. God is still in control. Now I want you to listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to say might just change the way you face every tomorrow. Worry does not change tomorrow. It only empties today of its strength. When you worry, you are trying to carry a burden God never asked you to carry. He said, "Cast all your cares upon me, for I care for you." You see, my friends, when life feels uncertain, when doors close, when people leave, and when prayers seem unanswered, that's not the end of your story. That's God rearranging your steps. He's not punishing you. He's positioning you. The problem is, we want to see the full picture, but God only gives us one piece at a time. Why? Because He wants us to trust His next move. Maybe today you feel like you're walking through a valley. The job didn't work out. The relationship failed. The diagnosis came back worse than expected. But remember this, every valley has an exit. And sometimes, the very thing you fear the most becomes the path that leads you to your breakthrough. God's plans don't always make sense in the moment, but they make perfect sense in eternity. He has already seen the ending, and it's a good one. So, stop worrying about what's next and start trusting who's next: God Himself. You don't have to see the road ahead when you know the one who lights the path. If He brought you this far, He's not about to leave you now. Trust His timing, trust His purpose, trust His heart, because His next move might just be the miracle you've been praying for. Worry is a thief. It doesn't knock on your door politely. It breaks in quietly, like a shadow that slips through the cracks of your peace. You don't always see it coming, but you feel its weight pressing down on your chest. It steals your breath, your calm, your sleep. And before you even realize it, worry has convinced you that you're carrying the world on your shoulders, when in truth, God never asked you to. You see, worry begins small. It starts as a whisper. What if things don't work out? What if I fail? What if I lose what I love? But that whisper grows louder until it becomes a storm in your mind. You begin to replay every mistake, every closed door, every uncertain tomorrow. And suddenly your faith begins to shrink under the noise of your fear. That's what worry does. It magnifies the problem and minimizes the promise. The truth is, worry doesn't fix tomorrow. It only fractures today. It's like trying to walk forward while staring into a rearview mirror. You can't see where you're going because you're trapped by what you're afraid might happen. The Bible says, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life?" None of us can. Yet how much of our life do we lose to it? How many nights have we stayed awake, rehearsing conversations that never happened, fearing disasters that never came, doubting a future that God had already secured? My friend, worry is not just a habit. It's a burden that drains your spirit. It takes what should be moments of faith and turns them into moments of fear. It turns prayer into panic. It turns hope into hesitation. And every time you give in to worry, you trade your peace for pain. You hand over your joy to a thief that doesn't deserve a single second of your life. I've seen people so weighed down by worry that they can't even see the blessings around them. They're surrounded by miracles, but their eyes are fixed on the storm. They have a roof over their heads, food on their table, breath in their lungs, and yet they live as though God has forgotten them. But God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't missed a single tear. In the knows your situation better than you do, and He is already working on your behalf, even when you can't see it. Think about it. Worry tells you that you're alone, but faith tells you that God is right there beside you. Worry says, "It's too late," but God says, "I'm just getting started." Worry says, "What if it goes wrong?" But God says, "What if I make it right?" You see, worry always looks at the problem, but faith looks at the provider. And here's something I want you to remember. Worry doesn't come from God. It's a tool of distraction, a tactic to keep your heart restless and your eyes off of heaven. Because when you worry, you stop worshiping. When you fixate on your problems, you forget the power of the one who can solve them. The enemy knows this. He knows that if he can keep you anxious, he can keep you from walking in peace. He can keep you stuck where you are instead of stepping into what God has prepared for you. But you don't have to live that way. You were never meant to carry the weight of what only God can control. You were made to trust Him, to rest in His promises, to let Him handle what's beyond your reach. Because when you give your worries to God, something incredible happens. Peace begins to fill the space that fear once occupied. You start to breathe again. You start to believe again. You start to live again. Let me tell you, some of the things you're worrying about today will turn out to be the very things that strengthen your faith tomorrow. Some of the battles that keep you up at night will become the testimonies that inspire someone else one day. God is not wasting your pain. He's not ignoring your tears. He's molding something within you, something stronger than worry and deeper than fear. Maybe today you're worried about your family, your job, your future. Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough that hasn't come yet. But friend, listen, God's silence is not His absence. Sometimes He's quiet because He's working on something you're not ready to see yet. Worry won't speed Him up. It will only wear you out. So instead of worrying about what's next, thank Him for what's now. Thank Him for what He's already done. Thank Him for what He's preparing behind the curtain of your life. Every time you start to worry, pause and ask yourself, has God ever failed me before? The answer is no. He's been faithful before, and He'll be faithful again. The same God who parted seas, who calmed storms, who raised the dead, is the same God who's watching over you right now. And if He could handle all that, He can handle your situation too. So don't let worry steal another day of your life. Don't give it power it doesn't deserve. Lay it down at the feet of the one who said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That's not just a promise. It's a lifeline. Take hold of it. Let go of the worry that's been robbing your peace and trust that the God who holds the universe also holds you. Because when you finally stop worrying, you'll realize something beautiful. God never needed your control. He only wanted your trust. Even when you can't see His hand, God is still working. That's the truth that separates faith from fear, peace from panic, and hope from despair. You may not see the evidence right now. You may look around and see nothing but silence, emptiness, or delay. But silence does not mean absence, and delay does not mean denial. Behind every quiet moment, behind every closed door, behind every prayer that seems unanswered, God is moving. He's working in ways that your eyes cannot see and your heart cannot yet understand. We live in a world where we want to see everything instantly. We want answers now, miracles now, change now. And when it doesn't happen on our timeline, we start to doubt. We start to wonder, where is God in all this? But I want to tell you something. God is not a genie who appears at your command. He is the Creator who writes the story. And while you're worried about the next chapter, He's already written the ending. You don't have to understand His plan to trust His purpose. Sometimes God hides His hand to strengthen your faith. Think about it. If you could always see how everything would work out, would you really need faith? No. Faith is not believing because you see. Faith is believing when you don't see. It's trusting that God is weaving something beautiful even when all you can see are loose threads. It's standing in the middle of uncertainty and saying, "Lord, I don't know how this will turn out, but I know You're in control." When Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers, he didn't see God's hand at work. When he was sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison, it looked like his story was over. But while Joseph couldn't see it, God was positioning him to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. What looked like rejection was actually direction. What looked like betrayal was divine preparation. God was working behind the scenes, turning pain into purpose. That's how God operates. He takes the pieces that make no sense to you and builds something miraculous out of them. You see, we often judge God's plan by what we can see, but God judges it by what He's shaping within us. He's not just working on your situation. He's working on you. He's molding your patience, strengthening your faith, and preparing your heart for what He has prepared for you. You might say, "But I've been praying for so long, and nothing has changed." Oh, but things are changing. You just can't see them yet. God might be protecting you from something you thought you wanted. He might be saving you from a path that would have destroyed you. Sometimes His no is not rejection, it's redirection. Sometimes His silence is His way of saying, "I'm still working, just wait." Think of a seed planted deep in the ground. For weeks, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you care for it, but there's no sign of life. Then one day, a small green shoot breaks through the soil. The truth is, that seed was growing all along. It just needed time in the dark to develop roots strong enough to support the growth that was coming. And that's exactly how God works with us. He grows us in the dark before He reveals us in the light. You might be in that hidden season right now. You might feel overlooked, forgotten, or abandoned. But you're not. God is developing something in you that can only grow in the soil of waiting. Don't mistake the darkness for defeat. Don't confuse stillness for stagnation. God is building strength in silence. Even when you can't trace His hand, you can trust His heart. He hasn't forgotten your prayers. He hasn't ignored your tears. He's working through people, through circumstances, through time itself to bring His plan to pass. Sometimes He closes one door to open another. Sometimes He lets you walk through the fire, not to burn you, but to refine you. Because gold doesn't shine until it's tested, and faith doesn't mature until it's stretched. You see, we often want God to change our situation, but He's more interested in changing us through the situation. Every trial, every disappointment, every delay has a purpose. It's not wasted. Romans 8:28 says, "All things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." Notice it says all things, not some things, not just the good things, all things. That means even the heartbreak, the failure, the pain, the waiting. It's all part of the masterpiece He's creating in your life. Maybe right now you can't make sense of where you are. Maybe life feels unfair, unpredictable, or even unbearable. But remember, God is not done. The story you're living right now is not the final chapter. When God starts something, He always finishes it. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, and between those 2 points, He is constantly working for your good. So when you don't see the miracle, don't lose faith. When the doors stay closed, don't give up. When the silence feels long, don't stop praying, because even when you can't see His hand is still there, guiding, shaping, holding, and preparing you for what's next. One day, you'll look back and realize that every unanswered prayer was mercy. Every delay was protection. Every detour was direction. And every season of silence was a setup for a louder testimony. God doesn't waste anything. Not a tear, not a trial, not a single moment. And when the time is right, you'll see what He's been doing all along. Until then, hold on to faith. Keep trusting. Because even when you can't see His hand, you can be sure His hand is still at work. Faith over fear, that's the dividing line between peace and panic, between courage and collapse. Every moment of your life will bring you to that choice. When the storms of uncertainty rage around you, when the news is bad, When the door's close, when people turn away, you will stand at a crossroads. One road leads to fear, and the other leads to faith. You can't walk both. You can't hold on to fear and trust God at the same time. You have to choose. Fear is loud. It shouts in your mind that you won't make it, that you're not enough, that your situation is impossible. It paints the worst-case scenario in vivid color. It feeds on your imagination until it convinces you that the future is hopeless. But faith whispers something different. Faith doesn't deny the storm. It declares that there's a Savior in the storm. Faith looks fear in the eye and says, "You're real, but my God is greater." You see, fear paralyzes, but faith mobilizes. Fear makes you run from the battle, but faith makes you stand your ground. Fear focuses on the mountain, but faith looks to the one who moves mountains. And the truth is, fear and faith are both powerful. They both demand belief. Fear believes in what can go wrong. Faith believes in what God can make right. Whichever one you feed will grow stronger in your life. When Peter stepped out of the boat, he had faith. He looked at Jesus walking on the water and believed, for a moment, that he could do the impossible. But the moment he looked at the waves instead of the Word, fear took over. He began to sink, not because the waves got stronger, but because his faith got weaker. That's what fear does. It shifts your focus from the promise to the problem. How often have we done the same? God calls us to step forward, to trust Him, to move into new territory, but fear whispers, "What if it doesn't work out?" And so we stay in the boat, safe, comfortable, stagnant. But you were never created to live by fear. You were created to walk by faith. And walking by faith means stepping out even when you can't see where your foot will land. Fear says, "I need to understand first." Faith says, "I'll obey first." Fear waits for a guarantee. Faith moves because of a promise. That's why Scripture tells us, we walk by faith, not by sight. You may not see how God is going to do it, but that's not your job. Your job is to trust that He will. The truth is, fear and faith will always knock on your door, but you decide which one you let in. When fear knocks, let faith answer. When doubt whispers, let truth speak louder. Because the moment you choose faith over fear, something shifts inside you. Peace begins to take root. Strength begins to rise. You start to see your situation through the lens of God's power, not your limitations. Let me tell you, fear is contagious, but so is faith. One fearful thought can spread through your mind and darken everything around you. But one spark of faith can light up an entire room of despair. When you choose faith, you not only change your outlook, you change your atmosphere. Your family feels it, your friends see it, and your own heart begins to breathe again. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. It means you won't be controlled by that fear. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. Think about David standing before Goliath. Every soldier around him saw a giant too big to fight, but David saw a target too big to miss. He wasn't relying on his sling. He was relying on his Savior. That's what faith does. It shifts your focus from what you see to what you know. And what you know is that God is for you, not against you. Fear thrives in the unknown, but faith thrives in the unseen. Faith believes that even when you can't see the outcome, God already has it written. Faith says, even if I don't know the way, I know the one who does. And that's enough, because when your faith is anchored in God, no storm can sink you. Now, there will be moments when fear tries to rise again, when the diagnosis comes, when the bills pile up, when life doesn't go the way you planned. But in those moments, you have to remind yourself of who God is. The same God who split the Red Sea, who shut the mouths of lions, who brought dead things back to life. That same God is on your side. He hasn't changed. His power hasn't diminished. His promises haven't expired. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're declaring that your God is bigger than your problem. You're declaring that you trust His plan even when you don't understand it. And that declaration is powerful. It's what breaks chains, moves mountains, and invites miracles. Some of you have been living with fear for so long that you've forgotten what peace feels like. You've let fear dictate your prayers, your dreams, even your relationships. But today you can make a different choice. You can tell fear, you've had your time. But now faith is taking your place. Because the moment you surrender fear to God, He replaces it with peace that surpasses all understanding. Faith doesn't promise an easy road. It promises a victorious one. It tells you that even in the valley, God walks beside you. Even in the fire, He stands with you. Even in the storm, He commands the winds and the waves. Fear says, "You're finished." Faith says, "God's not done yet." So the next time fear comes knocking at your door, answer it with faith. Speak the promises of God louder than the lies of the enemy. Remind yourself that fear is temporary, but faith is eternal. Because when you choose faith over fear, you don't just survive, you overcome. You rise above the storm, you walk through the fire, and you come out stronger than before. That's what happens when you trust God's power more than your own. That's what happens when you let faith, not fear, write your story. And my friend, when you do that, when you truly live by faith, you'll find that there was never anything to fear at all. God's timing is perfect. Those four words can either bring comfort or confusion depending on where you are in life. When everything is going well, it's easy to nod your head and say, "Yes, I believe that." But when the waiting stretches longer than you thought it would, when prayers seem unanswered, when opportunities slip away, when life doesn't unfold the way you expected, that's when those words are tested. That's when your heart whispers, "If God's timing is perfect, then why do I feel so delayed?" The truth is, God's timing often doesn't align with ours because He sees what we can't. We live in moments, He sees eternity. We see a single puzzle piece, He sees the entire picture. What looks like delay to us is often divine preparation. God is never late, and He's never early. He moves exactly when it's right, when the pieces of His plan align perfectly, when your heart is ready, and when the situation is ripe for His glory to shine. We live in an impatient world. We expect instant answers, instant results, instant relief. We don't like waiting, but waiting is one of God's greatest classrooms. In the waiting, He shapes your character. In the silence, He strengthens your faith. In the delay, He develops your patience. Because if He gave you everything you wanted exactly when you wanted it, you would never grow into the person capable of handling it. Sometimes God withholds what you desire to give you time to become what you're destined to be. Think about Abraham. God promised him a son, yet he waited 25 years before Isaac was born. 25 years of questions, of wondering if the promise was real, of walking by faith when sight gave him nothing. But when Isaac finally arrived, it wasn't on Abraham's timeline. It was on God's. And because it came in God's time, it carried God's power. The promise wasn't late. It was right on schedule. Moses waited 40 years in the desert before God sent him back to Egypt to lead his people. Joseph spent 13 years between the pit and the palace. David was anointed king, but waited years before he ever wore the crown. Every one of them could have said, "God, what's taking so long?" But when the moment finally came, they realized something important. God wasn't just preparing the blessing, He was preparing them. That's what He's doing for you, too. Maybe right now you're standing in that space between the promise and the fulfillment. Maybe you're praying, "Lord, when? When will it happen? When will you answer? When will the doors open?" And heaven seems silent, but silence doesn't mean inactivity. God is working while you wait. He's aligning people, shaping circumstances, moving hearts, and opening doors that you don't even know exist yet. We often think that waiting is wasted time, but it's not. Waiting is working time. God is working in you and for you. While you're waiting, He's teaching you to depend on Him more deeply, to trust Him more fully, to let go of control and surrender the clock to the Creator. Because the truth is, your timeline is too small for God's plan. His timing takes into account things you can't even imagine, people you haven't met yet, opportunities that haven't formed yet, seasons you don't know are coming. Sometimes the very thing you're calling a delay is God's protection. If He gave you what you wanted too soon, it might destroy you. If He opened the door before you were ready, you might walk through it and fall. But when God says, wait, He's not denying you. He's defending you. He's making sure that when the blessing comes, you'll be ready to carry it, not crumble under it. There's a beauty in waiting that only hindsight reveals. One day you'll look back and realize that God's timing was never off. It was perfect. You'll see how the heartbreak led to healing, how the closed door led to a better one, how the delay led to development, how the detour was actually direction. God was never holding you back. He was holding you together. When you're in the middle of the wait, it's easy to grow restless. It's easy to think God has forgotten you. But friend, God's delays are not God's denials. He hears every prayer. He sees every tear. He knows every desire of your heart. And if He hasn't answered yet, it's because He's still writing your story. You may be in chapter 5, wondering why the breakthrough hasn't come. But God's already seen the ending, and it's beautiful. Remember, God doesn't measure time like we do. We count seconds, but He counts seasons. And every season in your life has a purpose. The season of waiting teaches trust. The season of trial builds endurance. The season of fulfillment brings joy. You can't skip one and expect the other to last. You need all three for your faith to be strong. When the time is right, God moves suddenly. After years of silence, Joseph was called from prison to the palace in a single day. After years of waiting, Abraham's promise arrived in one night. After years of wandering, Israel crossed the Jordan in one moment. That's how God works, slow in preparation, sudden in manifestation. He takes His time building something that will last forever. So if you're waiting right now, don't lose heart. Waiting time is not wasted time. You're not stuck. You're being shaped. God's timing may not make sense now, but one day it will make perfect sense. And when His plan unfolds, you'll say, I see it now. I understand why it had to happen this way. Until then, keep walking in faith. Keep praying, even when it feels like heaven is quiet. Keep believing, even when the door stays closed. Because when you trust God's timing, you're saying, Lord, I believe that you know better than I do. I believe that your calendar is wiser than mine. And that kind of faith never goes unrewarded. The God who created time is never bound by it. He's never too early, never too late, always right on time. And when His timing meets your trust, that's when miracles happen. Your future is already in His hands. That truth alone should quiet every fear, calm every storm of doubt, and remind your heart that you are not walking through life by accident. You are not here by chance. You are not left to figure things out on your own. The same hands that formed the stars, that carved the mountains, that painted the skies, those same hands are holding your tomorrow. And because they are His hands, they are steady, sure, and full of purpose. We spend so much of our lives trying to control what's next. We make plans, set goals, draw timelines, and dream of how things should turn out. And yet, so often, life doesn't go according to our script. The plans we thought were perfect begin to crumble. The paths we thought were straight take unexpected turns. And in those moments, fear whispers that the future is uncertain. But the truth is, it's not uncertain, it's already secured. Because it's not in your hands, it's in God's. When you truly believe that your future belongs to God, everything changes. You stop chasing after what was never meant for you. You stop panicking when things don't go the way you expected. You stop living in fear of what might happen because you know who holds what will happen. Your confidence no longer comes from your ability to control outcomes. It comes from your trust in the one who controls all things. Think about how many times in your life you've faced something that looked impossible. A moment when you thought, this is the end. There's no way forward. But then, somehow God made a way. He opened a door you didn't see. He provided when there was nothing left. He healed what seemed broken beyond repair. That wasn't coincidence. That was His hand guiding your future. Even when you didn't recognize it, we often think the future is something far away, something that's coming later. But to God, the future is already finished. He doesn't see it as what will be. He sees it as what already is. The Bible says He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. That means He's already standing in your tomorrow. He's already seen your victories, your breakthroughs, your blessings. He knows the turns your life will take, and He's already prepared the grace you'll need for each one. If you could see how carefully God has planned your steps, you would never worry again. Every closed door, every delay, every disappointment, it's all part of a design meant to shape you for what's coming next. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and realize that He never let go of your hand. The pain that confused you, the path that scared you, the detours that frustrated you, they were all leading you to a place of purpose. The truth is, our future isn't something we need to fear. It's something we need to trust. Because God's hands are not clumsy. He doesn't drop what He holds. He doesn't lose track of His children. And if your life is in His hands, then your destiny is safe. That doesn't mean everything will be easy or predictable. It means that even when life is unpredictable, God remains unshaken. Sometimes, He lets things fall apart so that better things can come together. Sometimes He allows the unknown so that you'll learn to lean on Him. Because faith doesn't mean knowing what the future holds. It means trusting the one who holds it. The more you surrender to that truth, the lighter your burdens become. You stop trying to figure out every detail and instead start resting in His plan. Maybe right now, you're standing at a crossroads, unsure of which direction to take. You're worried about the next step, about what's waiting on the other side of a decision. Let me remind you, God has already been there. He's already gone ahead of you. He's already prepared the way. You don't have to see the full map when you trust the one who wrote it. All you have to do is take the next faithful step, knowing His hand will guide your feet. God's hands have never failed. They have never once lost control. Those same hands held Noah's ark steady through the storm, guided Moses through the wilderness, protected Daniel in the lion's den, and lifted Peter out of the water. And those same hands are holding you. When you stumble, they catch you. When you wander, they lead you home. When you fall, they lift you up again. You are not too far gone for His grasp, not too broken for His touch, not too lost for His direction. Your future may surprise you, but it will never surprise God. He's already prepared blessings you haven't prayed for yet, victories you haven't fought for yet, and answers to prayers you haven't spoken yet. Every moment of your tomorrow is already known, already written, already covered by His grace. You can face the unknown because He's already there. So, instead of fearing what's next, begin to thank Him for what's coming. Thank Him that your life isn't left to chance. Thank Him that even when you don't understand the path, you can trust the hands that guide it. Because those hands are scarred by love. Proof that He's already paid the price for your future. He wouldn't go that far to save you only to abandon you now. Every sunrise is a reminder that your story is still unfolding under God's direction. Every breath you take is a sign that His purpose for you is still alive. And no matter what tomorrow brings, you can rest in this truth. The same God who held you yesterday is holding your tomorrow. So stop worrying about what's next. Stop trying to predict what's already been planned. Lift your eyes, take a deep breath, and say, Lord, my future is yours. Because when you truly place your future in God's hands, you'll discover peace that fear can't shake, joy that circumstances can't steal, and strength that time can't weaken. Your future is not uncertain. It's already safe, already secure, already settled in the loving, faithful, and perfect hands of God.